So thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me. So I'm Stephanie Scott from Columbia University and the Columbia University Medical Center, and I'm going to talk about our strategy in using Pivot. And so I'm going to talk about the Pivot point of contacts. That really is their names. So hold on one second. I'm trying to find my mouse. There we go. So Pivot would not have been possible without working very closely with the Irving Medical Center's Health Sciences Library. This has been a true collaboration from the beginning. The Health Sciences Library actually had reached out to my office, Sponsor Projects Administration, and said, we're really interested in purchasing this project and we'd like to partner with you on the rollout of Pivot. And it really has been a wonderful collaboration. And so I'm going to talk about that collaboration. And just to make it clear, I come from the Sponsored Projects Administration Office. We're the office that reviews all the grant applications and submits them directly to the sponsors. Our office does not handle limited submissions. There is a separate office that handles limited submissions and encouraging the large multidisciplinary grants. That's our Office of Research Initiatives. However, in my role, I do a tremendous amount of training and communications, and I was given this role with training and communicating with Pivot. And that's why we've had such a great partnership with the library, is because I'm doing that engagement and strategy and communications piece. The library is doing a lot of troubleshooting and communicating directly with Pivot when issues come up or questions. And so we work very closely together. So, and through this collaboration, what we did was we created an internal help desk called pivothelp@columbia.edu. So if anyone in the Columbia community has a question about how to use the product, or if maybe they're having trouble doing something, then they send an email to that email address. And I'm behind the email, as well as representatives from the Health Sciences Library, and one of us will take the question. And like I said before, the library is in direct contact with Pivot in terms of functionality or making suggestions or troubleshooting, and I'm doing the communications outreach and strategic use. And just very quickly, everybody gave an overview of their institutions, overview of Columbia. Pivot is being used campus-wide. So it's being used by our main campus, known as the Morningside campus. So that includes your humanities, your arts and sciences, engineering, business, law, social work. And then it's also being used at our medical center, which consists of 4 schools, the dental school, public health, school of nursing, and physicians and surgeons. And just to give you a sense of the enormous volume, the number of proposals that went out in fiscal year 2020, so that's from July 19 to June 30, you could see that our medical center, consisting of the 4 schools, they're sort of, in terms of volume, they're submitting probably a little less than, I think it's about 63, 64% of the total proposals compared to our Morningside campus. But, I'm sorry, so that's for our federal proposals. Our non-federal, you could see the total proposals submitted across the 2 campuses, over 4,000 proposals. And to give you a sense of our dollar value of awards, and these are in terms of millions, the 2 campuses together for fiscal year 2020, we have over $1.375 billion in sponsor projects funding. You could see that at the medical center, obviously, NIH makes almost 60% of that sponsor projects funding. And our Morningside campus, however, where we had all those schools, really a broader range of disciplines, it's really interesting to see the how the non-federal funding, about 1/3 of it is coming from non-federal sources, a little less reliant on NIH, although as you could see here, NSF certainly plays a big role and other federal dollars, but it's a little bit more evenly split. So I just think that's very interesting. And it's something to keep in mind as I go through the rest of this presentation. So guess what? Pivot's fairly new for us. We only first launched the product back in 2018. And so through the collaboration with the library worked directly with Pivot in working out all the pre-launch activities, for example, in loading all of our faculty profiles from publicly available sources. And we sent our first initial announcement on August 20th. And in partnership with the libraries, we also did a lot of training. And when I say training, we tend to do our training more broadly. Certainly, we said that you could invite us to faculty meetings, and we've done certainly some one-on-one trainings. But in working with me, we go big, we go broad. So big Zoom meetings with hundreds of people on it that we record, and we store those recordings in behind a firewall in another system called Panopto, which I don't know if any of your universities have Panopto, but it's a great resource also for when you want to share videos but have them behind your university login, so it's not, on YouTube somewhere. So we launched it in August 20th, 2018. And so here comes this concept of the pivot point of contact. So even though we are an enormous institution, believe it or not, we don't have anybody centrally whose sole job description is to send out newsletters and to find funding opportunities and distribute them campus-wide. We don't have that. And so what we decided to do was we emailed all the chairs campus-wide of the academic departments, and we said, hey, we have this wonderful new product of Pivot, which is certainly might be important for you and your department for finding relevant funding opportunities, and we would like you to designate a pivot point of contact who will be an expert and learn Pivot and be a resource for your school or your department. And not all the chairs provided a name, but we have approximately, I would say, over 30 pivot point of contacts around the university. And after they designated those pivot point of contacts, we had a first meeting with them in April 2019 to train them on specific functionality that not everyone in the university is going to have. And I'll talk about those roles in a second. So besides making them a pivot point of contact, they are given very specific roles in Pivot. And I'm just checking on the time. I know my presentation started a little bit late. I probably have about 3-4 more minutes. Okay. Great. So we first met with them in April 2019, did a training, recorded that session. We have materials for them as pivot point of contacts. And then we were a little bit late in the game. So after it launched, almost a year later, we then worked with Pivot to get single sign-on shibboleths, so they can log in with their Columbia credentials to access Pivot. And so we had to change some of our materials because of that, but it's been a lot easier, I would say, having that single sign-on option. So I'm really grateful for that. And then this past year, with the new functionality with branding, we rebranded our site with the help of the libraries and reintroduced Pivot to the community. And again, did broad trainings that we've recorded on Zoom. And then we did a refresher training just a couple of months ago with orienting them to the new design of Pivot for our point of contacts. And so just to show you what our customized branding looks like, we're using the Columbia blue colors. Here's Health Sciences Library and Spa and our logos. And we also have customized resources in the tips and resources section. So we have our help desk for if anyone needs help. We have a find funding using Pivot. So we have slide decks, our own video tutorial. So you could see our past webinars and our slide decks that we have posted here. And we also have a Pivot Quick Start guide with our own branding using, actually, I think Pivot has one in Word document that we customized for our use. So let me go back to the pivot point of contacts. So as I said, we requested the department chairs to designate somebody. So who were these people? We said it was whoever they wanted to designate, but these are typically people who already had the role of identifying funding opportunities for faculty, or maybe the chair just designated a grants manager or a program assistant to then take on that role. But it was really up to the chair who to decide to select in this role. And we told the chairs these were our short and long-term goals. We want to reduce the time and effort faculty spend searching for funding opportunities. Because we don't have centrally somebody or to do this campus-wide, we did feel pretty strongly that in the schools and the departments themselves, they can speak the speak, sort of say, of what can talk the science with the faculty better than certainly I could or someone centrally could to really identify those targeted funding opportunities. This individual can also help enhance the visibility of their online profiles in Pivot. And the goal also was to create a community of all these point of contacts to share best practices in the discovery of targeted funding opportunities. So we created a special email group for the Pivot point of contacts and created videos for them. So they have special privileges. They could create. And so in the admin roles, we gave them the ability to curate lists. They could create internal opportunities. And let me tell you, there are certain departments that need to have the ability to announce internal opportunities because they have a multi-project grant with pilot projects. And so they can post that themselves. They don't have to go through me essentially to do that. They create their own newsletters, groups, and certainly more. And so these are the admin roles that we have given the point of contacts. They can manage newsletters, internal funding, curate lists, manage public groups, manage profiles. We allow them to do on a case-by-case basis, and that is because of the fact, as you probably know, you can't use Pivot to kind of differentiate things by department of school. If you have an admin role in Pivot, you pretty much have access to everybody. And so on a case-by-case basis, we will give individuals the point of contacts, the managing profiles. And I love the embedded search results. The libraries and I just this week tested it out. I didn't think I had the ability, based on our website content management system, in order to be able to embed, but it turns out they gave us that functionality recently, and so now we're able to do it. So in terms of our future goals with the point of contacts, we have given some suggestions to Pivot about reporting, just because of the unique nature of the way that we're decentralized than probably other Pivot users. It would be great if we were able to pull usage reports by school or department, which would help the point of contacts. But certainly, that's probably long into the future. But really, we want to encourage, with the point of contacts, open discussions. I said that we have a dedicated email group for the point of contacts, and we're encouraging them. They haven't taken advantage of this yet, but we want to encourage them to say, hey, in engineering, I found this great way to share opportunities with our faculty, and we created this in that newsletter. And I'm hoping that another department will be like, that's really great. I have this special tip as well. And so what I want to do is have more ongoing discussions with them, opportunities to foster the sharing of ideas. And then I also want to encourage more use of Pivot for identifying collaborators. I had a great success story recently where someone was coming to me because they know I do broad announcements to the whole university, because they were trying to find individuals that do statistics in diabetes research. They didn't know who to go to. I'm like, you really got to start utilizing Pivot to identify collaborators. And so I would like to also give more training to the point of contacts to really use that functionality of identifying collaborators. And so hopefully I didn't go over my time too much. and I'm happy to take any questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Stephanie. That was great. Actually, really, really interesting. I just see one question, so if that's okay, I will limit it to one question.
Sure.
And in the interest of time as well. I only saw one that came through, and it was how many of your point of contact are staff versus faculty, and do these staff usually have other research roles within their unit? Makes sense?
Great question. Yes. So the point of contacts, I would say, are mostly staff administrators, grants administrators. However, there are a couple who do have faculty roles, doctorate roles that understand the science, in particular in our cancer center. And I'm not sure if that fully answered the question. There was a second part to that. I don't know if I got it, but did I answer the question?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure I fully answered.
I'm not seeing any other questions.
Okay.
So
great.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I will